There are a large number of unidentified victims associated to today's case. We'll make separate videos for sharing, but please pay close attention to the descriptions. You may be able to give a person back their name and give a family back their loved one. Samuel McDowell was born in 1940 in Reynolds, Georgia. He would make claims that his mother was a teenage sex worker who abandoned him, but authorities believe she was working as a maid, gave birth to him in jail, and gave him over to his grandmother to raise him. He was given his father's name at birth, but later assumed his mother's name, Little. His dark fantasies began early in childhood. As a teenager, he collected true crime magazines that told stories of women being choked. Throughout his life, starting when he was still a teen, he was in and out of prison. It was like a revolving door for Little. 11 different states and offenses that ranged from DUI to rape, from theft to aggravated assault. Early on in his criminal career, two things happened that might have given the man a sense that he could get away with murder whenever he wanted, and in some sense, for a variety of reasons, that would turn out to be true. In 1982, he was arrested in Pascagoula, Mississippi, for the murder of Melinda Rose Lepre, 22. She'd gone missing. The grand jury declined to indict him. However, while the investigation continued in Mississippi, Little was extradited to Florida and put on trial for the murder of Patricia Ann Mount, found murdered in September 1982. Witnesses would put him with her the night before she disappeared, but he was acquitted. He went from state to state after that, place to place, committing murders along the way, from 1982 until he was arrested at a homeless shelter in Louisville, Kentucky, in September 2012. By that time, authorities had connected him to 3 murders through DNA. All of the women were murdered in the late 80s in Los Angeles. They were Linda Alford, Guadalupe Duarte Apodaca, and Audrey Nelson Everett. So he's charged with those, and he's sent back to LA for trial. The Lepre case was then reopened after his arrest, and within a few months, authorities would say he was being investigated for more than 3 dozen murders, all of which occurred in the 80s. In the meantime, while all this investigation is going on, he goes on trial in LA for the 3 murders. He gets convicted and is sentenced to life without parole. He would profess his innocence right through the day of the verdict. He gets sent off to a state prison in LA County. More than 4 years later, he began to confess. Authorities from different city and state police organizations were interviewing him, and he began to crack. He confessed to a murder in Odessa, Texas, then to another, and another, and another. After weeks, he would confess to a total of more than 90 murders in 18 different states, going all the way back to 1970. Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, the FBI began working on confirming the confessions. They had to match each of the confessions with a known murder or suspicious death. While they began that work, Little kept confessing. Maryland, Kentucky. His confessions were fairly detailed, and he often drew a picture of his victim, showing how he remembered her. Tennessee, Ohio, New York. He was still confessing as late as 2020 to murders in Florida and other states. Before he died, he would make a total of 93 confessions to murder. So far, 60 of those deaths have been confirmed by the FBI. He was only ever charged and convicted for 8 murders, just 8. He believed, and he was partly right, that no one was going to push to find most of the women, and that policing agencies might not investigate that hard, because he targeted the most vulnerable of women, sex workers, drug addicts, and the homeless. In many cases, it would be a long time before someone noticed the woman was missing, and in too many cases, stereotyping meant that some police services really didn't dig as deep as they might have otherwise. In so many cases, when remains were found, there was just no way of identifying them without DNA or fingerprints that were in the system. until genetic genealogy became available, that is, and in so very many cases, remains have not even been found, so no case has been confirmed yet. He is, by his official count anyway, America's most prolific serial killer. Let's get into who these women were, give them their names, and hopefully help discover the names of those who are yet to be identified. Each and every one of them had someone who loved them, even if it didn't feel like that while they were alive. Each was someone's daughter, someone's granddaughter. Many were sisters, nieces, moms. It does not matter what else was happening in their lives. None deserved their death. They deserve to be found. They deserve their names. They deserve that dignity. Please help if you can. We're also preparing individual shorts for the unidentified women, the unlocated women, so that they're easier to share and distribute and hopefully come to some resolutions. Little was convicted of 8 of the 93 murders he confessed to. We won't go into the details of the murders, but we will tell you what we know about the women where we can. There was Anna Lee Stewart, who was 32, and she was murdered on October 11, 1981, in Cincinnati, Ohio. She was known by Anna. Her family waited nearly 40 years to find out who took their daughter, their sister, from them. Mary Jo Payton was 21 when she was murdered in Cleveland in 1984. Carol Linda Alfred was 40 and she was murdered in Los Angeles. She scratched Little, and so his DNA was found under her fingernails. Hers would be the first DNA match that would lead to capturing Little. Guadalupe Apodaca was 46 years old and murdered around September the 3rd, 1989. DNA at the crime scene also helped to catch Little. Her son said his mom was very dear to him. Little would try to exchange expletives with the man at his trial, and an effort that those who saw it would attribute to the fact that he had finally been taken down by 2 women, and he really didn't like that much. Audrey Nelson Everett was 35, murdered on or about August the 14th, 1989. It would take some time to identify her, but DNA under her fingernails would also help catch Little. She had survived severe burns from an apartment fire in New York City only 5 years before she died, and it gave some comfort to her family that she would get evidence that would finally help stop a serial killer. She was described as a rebel, a free spirit, and a fighter. Zena Marie Jones was 20. She went missing in Tennessee in July 1990 and was found 22 days later in Arkansas. Little provided a sketch of Zena, and she was finally identified and regained her name in April 2022. Zena had a 5-year-old daughter when she disappeared. She was a young mom and a loving sister. Her family said she was funny and the life of the party. Rose Evans was 32 years old when she was murdered in Cleveland around August the 24th, 1991. Denise Christie Brothers was 32, a mother of 2 children. She was killed in Odessa, Texas, likely on New Year's Day, 1994. Then there are murders that Little confessed to with a full name, or the FBI has matched to a case and the victim was identified. They don't need further information on these cases, but we'll tell you what we can about these ladies. Yvonne Plus was 20 years old when she was killed in Mason, Georgia. Her case was a Jane Doe case until May 2023, when Yvonne was identified and her name was restored. Her family deeply missed Yvonne and asked for privacy. Clara Birdlong was killed in 1977 in Pascagoula, Mississippi. She was finally identified in 2021 by way of genetic genealogy. The cousin who was contacted as part of the efforts was able to put authorities in touch with her closer family members. Patricia Parker was killed in 1980 or 1981 in Digg County, Georgia. She was positively identified and her name returned in October 2020 by a DNA match after her family recognized her from a forensic reconstruction. She was 30 and a mom when she died. Melinda Lapre, who also went by Mindy, was 22 when she was murdered in Pascagoula, Mississippi. She was originally from New Hampshire. Linda Bennett was killed in May 1988 in Owenton, Kentucky. She was reported missing by family in June 1988. She was finally given her name in December 2022. She was 28 and had a son when she was taken. Frances Campbell was killed in 1984 in Savannah, Georgia. She was given her name back in 2019. The grand jury would indict Little, but he was not prosecuted for this murder, likely because he died in December 2020. Roberta Tanderich had her name returned in October 2019. She was killed in Akron, Ohio in 1991. She was a mom of two. Alice Denise Duval was killed June 11, 1991 in Los Angeles. Mary Jo Brosley was killed on New Year's Eve, 1970 in Homestead, Florida. She had a 7-year-old son. Sarah Brown worked at a local restaurant on Canal Street when she was killed in New Orleans, Louisiana in April 1973. Yolanda Jones was killed in Pine Bluff, Arkansas in 1994. She was just 26. Fredonia Smith was identified by Mason, Georgia authorities. She was killed in 1982. Her family said that Little's confession brought back bad memories, but they were also thankful to finally have answers. And Fredonia, she was one of the women who put up one hell of a fight. Bobby Fields was killed by Little in Wichita Falls, Kansas in 1993. She was located between Amarillo and Lubbock. Then there are the cases that Little confessed to that have not been matched or where the victims have not been identified. The dates are approximate. Little has been known to be off by as much as 10 years or more during his confessions in cases where there have been matches and confirmed murders. He was also known to be off by as much as 40 miles. He had a very accurate memory otherwise. He just struggled judging time frames and distance. These are the ones that the FBI and the Texas Rangers ask for public assistance with. There's Unmatched Phoenix, killed in 1988 or 1996. She was killed in Phoenix and may have been local to the area. She was Hispanic and estimated to be in her 40s. Here is the sketch Little made of this lady. Then there was Unmatched Phoenix Ann, killed in 1997. She was white. Unmatched North Little Rock, Arkansas. She was killed somewhere between 1992 and 1994. She was a black female. Approximately 24 years old, she stood 5'5" to 5'7" tall. She was approximately 200 pounds. Little stayed with her on and off for about 3 days. He says he shoplifted with the woman and sold the merchandise. He says he was arrested, and records would indicate he was arrested for shoplifting in North Little Rock from a Kroger on April 20th, 1994. He was driving a 1978 yellow Cadillac Eldorado or a yellow Dodge. When he went to move it, the woman was asleep inside. He drove her to meet an ex-boyfriend who he called Bear, who may now be deceased. Then he drove her to her residence. The following day, he drove with her toward Benton or Bentonville, Arkansas. When they were just outside Little Rock, he drove down a dirt road and he killed her. He says her remains were laid on a pile of branches and old corn stalks in or near a cornfield. Her name might be Ruth, and she may have a mother who lived in North Little Rock. There are a number of unmatched victims from Los Angeles, and we're going to refer to them by letter. Unmatched Los Angeles C was a black female, 19 years old, killed in 1987. She may have been wearing a red bandana and had tattoos. She was 5'5" to 5'6", 120 pounds, honey-colored skin, as Little put it. She may have been living in Compton, where he picked her up. Unmatched Los Angeles D was a black female, 50 years old, killed on January 31st or February 1st or the 2nd, 1987. She may have gone by the nickname Granny. Little was immediately out of prison and killed 2 women on the same day. She was dark-skinned and slightly chubby with black hair that was graying. She was wearing a dress. Unmatched Los Angeles E is a black female, 20 or 23 years old, killed on January 31st or February 1st or 2nd, 1987, when he killed two women on the same day immediately after being released from prison. This female was skinny, small, and she had dark skin. At the time, Little was driving a blue Buick station wagon with brown wood trim on the sides. She was wearing pants and a hat. Her remains were left near her house. Unmatched Los Angeles F. She is a black female between 26 and 27, killed in 1987. She was 5'7" and 140 pounds. He described her complexion as yellow skinned. He met her on Florence and Broadway streets. She may have just been released from the county jail. He was driving a black Thunderbird at the time, which he says he left at Griffith Park when it would not start. He was later with her in a green Mercury. She was wearing a dress, red panties, and Little said she had a large butt. Unmatched Los Angeles C. She is a black female between 20 and 22 years old, killed in 1991 or 1992, possibly from the San Francisco area. He was driving a Ford F-250 van then. She was 5'4" to 5'5" and 120 pounds. She is described as Little. He met her near the Frontier Hotel in 3rd Street. He went with her to several locations, including Griffith Park, 71st and Broadway, 74th and Broadway, and a Popeye's Chicken. Unmatched Los Angeles H. She is a black female killed in September or October 1992. She was 5'7" and 200 pounds and light skinned. She lived off Figueroa Avenue, close to the I-10. She was wearing a headpiece that Little thought was some sort of religious turban and a dress. Unmatched Los Angeles I. She was a black female, age unknown, killed in 1992 or 1993. She was 5'5" to 5'6", 160 to 180 pounds, with dark skin, and Little described her as big-butted. He met her at a liquor store on 49th Street and Central Avenue. She was dressed in pants. Her remains were dumped out of the city in a country area that had very tall elephant grass. Little believed that a helicopter flying overhead must have found her remains. Unmatched Los Angeles J is a Hispanic female, 24 to 25 years old, killed in 1992 or 1993, possibly from Phoenix. She was 5'9", 120 to 130 pounds, slim with long hair. She was wearing a dress. He met her at a liquor store on Central Avenue and 22nd Street. They were behind a business near Vermont Avenue that day, and a business owner told them to leave. Unmatched Los Angeles K. She is a black female, aged 23 to 25 years old, killed in 1996. Her name might be Shella or Sheila. She had golden-colored skin, Little's description. She was 5'6" and 120 pounds. When he picked her up, she was with a masculine-appearing, lesbian black female. He gave them both a ride and made a date with the unmatched female the following day. She was wearing a black dress, and he was driving a blue Cadillac that year. Unmatched Los Angeles L. is a black female, 23 to 25 years old, killed in 1996. She might have gone by the name T-Money. She was 5'5", 200 pounds and heavy set. Little described her skin as chocolate brown. He picked her up on San Pedro and Manchester streets. Little said that all the children in the area knew her name. She was wearing a black dress that was slit at the side. She may have been shopping for makeup in the city of Downey earlier on the day she was killed. Unmatched Los Angeles M. She is a white female, aged 23 to 25 years old, killed in 1996 and possibly left in a bathtub in an abandoned house off of Slauson Avenue. She was 5 feet tall and 110 pounds or so by Little's description. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. Little met her at a homeless camp off Central Avenue and Hooper Street. She was wearing blue jeans, a white blouse, and white tennis shoes. In follow-up interviews, he said she might be 5'6" to 5'7" and 120 to 130 pounds. Unmatched Los Angeles N. was a black female, age 25, killed in 1996. She was 5'7" to 5'8" and 130 pounds. Little described her skin as chocolate. He met her at a halfway house located off Florence Avenue and a dead-end street that butts against the I-10, possibly on Manchester Avenue. Little said she had a big butt and dark skin. She may have been slightly overweight and had short, straight, shoulder-length hair. She was wearing a long flower dress and a long fur coat. Her name might have been Helen. Unmatched Los Angeles O is a black female with honey-colored skin. She was 5'5", 120 to 130 pounds and wearing shorts. He met her near the intersection of Florence and the I-10, where he was just coming out of some guy's car. He said she had large breasts. He believed that her body had been found and that authorities thought she had been thrown off of the highway. She was the first woman he killed in Los Angeles in 1984, right before he was arrested in San Diego, which was on October 25th, 1984. Unmatched Los Angeles P is a dark-skinned female killed in 1991 or 1992. She was short, 22 to 23 years old, 5 feet tall, 120 pounds. Her name might have been Linda. She had a friend whose name might have been Christina. He met them on Figueroa Street the same day he lodged a complaint with the LAPD against Christina for selling him wax and said that they arrested her on an outstanding warrant. In a follow-up interview, he would say that Linda was 5'5" to 5'6", with straight hair and a thin build. Like Los Angeles, there are a number of unmatched victims in Miami, and we will also refer to them with letters. Unmatched Miami A is a black female, age 22, killed in 1971. Her name might be Linda. Unmatched Miami B is a black transgender female, age 18 to 19. She was killed in 1971 or 1972. Her name might have been Marianne or Marion. She was 5'6" to 5'7", 135 to 140 pounds. He met her at the Pool Palace near 17th Avenue. She may have had an ex-boyfriend named Wes. They met again later at a bar in Overton. She liked to drink rum 51. Marion may have lived with several other transgender people between Brownsville and Liberty City. He was driving a gold four-door Pontiac at the time. He dumped her body in the Everglades. Little says the same male transvestite with a long neck was with Marianne at both the Pool Palace and the bar in Overton. And they knew Little by Billy. Unmatched Miami C. She is a black female, aged 26 to 28, and was Haitian. She was 5'4" to 5'8", 120 to 130 pounds. She had a short knotted or plaited hairstyle. Little said she was skinny and rough-talking. He picked her up in Homestead, possibly at a bar that was divided into a liquor part and a bar part. She was killed in 1971 or 1972, or possibly 1978 or 79. She may have worked as a civilian on the Homestead Air Force Base. Unmatched Miami D is a black female between 23 to 24 years old, killed in the mid-1970s. Her name might have been Emily. She may have worked at the University of Miami. He described her complexion as pretty and yellow. She was 5'6" tall and about 130 pounds. He said she had big legs, wore a skirt, and red high heels. He met her at a bar called the Pool Palace off of 17th Avenue. Kendall Jane Doe was a white female, possibly Cuban. She was between 25 to 35 years old and killed in 1971. Her name might be Sarah or Donna, and we are referring here to Kendall, Florida. Unmatched Fort Myers was a black female killed in 1984 or possibly 1990 or 1991. She was 26 to 28 years old, 5'6" to 5'7" inches tall, and weighed 130 to 160 pounds. Little described her complexion as dark. He met this woman 2 years before she was killed, and he would sometimes sell clothes to her family. She lived down the street from a liquor store, and she was wearing shorts when she was killed. Unmatched Tampa Bay is a black female killed in 1984. Unmatched Plant City was a black female killed in 1977 or 1978, or possibly 1983 or 1984. Little may have met her at a bar in Clearwater, Florida. She was about 23 years old, 5 foot 5 inches tall, 140 to 160 pounds. He referred to her as chubby. He was driving a black Thunderbird at this time. He described her complexion as dark. She was wearing shorts, which she changed at her house for a black skirt. 4 or 5 of her younger siblings may have come running out of the house yelling his name. Sam, Sam. Several white males helped him to get his vehicle out of the sand he was stuck in at a beach while this female was with him, and he would have dumped her nearby. Unmatched Savannah was a black female killed in 1974, aged 19 to 23. Little was driving a white Thunderbird at the time. She was 5 foot 5 inches to 5 foot 6 inches tall, 140 to 150 pounds, with a dark complexion. She may have had mental health issues or cognitive disabilities. She lived near the Salvation Army with a female who was about 40 that chewed snuff or dipped tobacco. They lived upstairs in a 2-story residence. She called him Kane, and he believes her name was Catherine, Pat, or Jane. There are 2 unmatched persons from Atlanta, so we'll use letters. Unmatched Atlanta A was a black female, late 20s to early 30s, killed in 1981. He described her complexion as mahogany leather colored. She was 5 foot 6 to 5 foot 9, 130 to 160 pounds, and wore shorts made to look like a dress. They were at a bar on Auburn Avenue dancing. He was driving a 1967 Lincoln Mark II. Later, the manager of the hotel he was staying at, who was wearing an Atlanta Falcons hat, approached him and asked him what he was doing while he was using a bucket of soapy water to clean his back seat. He believes the manager may have given him some disinfectant to help with that. Unmatched Atlanta B is a black female, 23 to 25 years old, killed in 1984. She may have been a college student at Morehouse College. He was driving his green station wagon at the time. She was 5 foot 9 and 120 to 130 pounds with a slim build. He met her at a quiet bar on the corner of Auburn Street. At a dirt road surrounded by canal off the highway out of Atlanta, his car would not start. A white boy in a hot rod gave him a jump, he said. The woman would have been in the car at the time, and he remembers her wearing a dress and having a boxy purse. Unmatched Granite City, Illinois. She was a black female, age 26, killed between 1976 and 1979. He met the victim in St. Louis, Missouri, and her name might be Joe. Unmatched Covington, Kentucky. She was a white female killed in 1984. Little met her in Columbus, Ohio. She was killed in Covington and her body disposed of somewhere in northern Kentucky. New Orleans Jane Doe. A. She was a white female aged 33 to 44 years old and killed in 1982. Unmatched New Orleans B was a black female between 30 and 40 years old, killed in the fall of 1982. She was 5 foot 8 to 5 foot 9 inches tall and weighed 160 pounds. She had honey-colored brown skin and a medium-length straight hair. She was wearing a party dress with buttons on the front. They met in a club where she was attending a birthday party with a group of friends and one of her 2 sisters. Little described that her friend was a small, light-skinned Creole girl, and he would have been driving a Lincoln Continental Mark III at the time. She may have lived with her mother, who was sick. Unmatched Monroe, Louisiana. She was a black female, age 24, and she was killed sometime between 1987 and the early 1990s. He met her in an area the locals called the Embankment, across from a graveyard and near railroad tracks. She was 20 to 24 years old, 5'6" to 5'10", and 150 to 160 pounds. He described her as being yellow or light complected. She may have worked for a madam named Mammy Way. Marilyn Jane Doe was a white female, aged 20 to 25, killed in 1972 in Prince George's County. She was possibly from Massachusetts. Unmatched Las Vegas was a black female in her 40s, killed in 1993. Her skin was dark in tone, and Little said she was skinny. She was about 5'5" and 110 to 120 pounds. Little believed her hair was short, and she wore a long-haired wig. He remembers that the woman pointed out her son to him, black male who was 19 to 23 years old. Unmatched Cincinnati was a black female, killed in 1974 or possibly 77 to 79. He dumped her body in Columbus. She was in her 40s, tall with short hair and very dark skin. She wore glasses and a wig and had a long neck. He preferred victims with long necks. She may have had a Mexican roommate who was overweight, who lived 2 blocks from a liquor store. She would have been driving a Thunderbird at the time. Unmatched Charleston, South Carolina, was a black female killed between 1977 to 1982 or perhaps 1972 to 73, age 28. He said he was driving his black Thunderbird at the time. He said she had a large bubble butt, and he met her near a military base near Gate 7. She was 5'5" to 5'6" and about 150 pounds. Unmatched Houston was a black female, 25 to 28 years old, killed either in 1976 to 1979 or in 1993. Unmatched Gulfport, Mississippi. She was a black female, aged 22 to 25, and killed between 1980 and 1984, or possibly the late 70s. He was driving a black Thunderbird at the time. He described her as a pretty dark-skinned girl. She was 5'3" to 5'5" and 120 to 130 pounds. Little described her as soft-spoken, sophisticated, and intelligent. He met her at a bar in the Turkey Creek area. She was dressed in a skirt and blouse. Unknown Knoxville, Tennessee. She was a black female, age 25, killed in or around January 1975. She was 5'5" to 5'6", 120 to 130 pounds. He said she had a medium frame and her complexion was golden colored. She had a short hairstyle that was not an afro. He believes he met her around 4th Avenue, somewhere near a graveyard. Unmatched Atlanta. C. She was a white woman, heavy-set and medium height. She may have worked at a topless club. She was killed in 1983 or 1984, and she was probably from Griffin, Georgia. She had a son. Little would have been driving his black Thunderbird at this time. Then there is the Willoughby Hills, Ohio, Jane Doe. She was a black female between 20 and 35 years old, killed in 1982. She was wearing a blue-green dress, size 6 or size 8, a black or dark blue sweater with a belt. She was wearing a black high heel, size 7 or 7.5. She was wearing a larger style gold color Elgin watch, a cross necklace, and a mother-of-pearl pin. She was also wearing a gold ring. She was possibly from Cleveland, Ohio. According to NamUs, she was 17 to 35. She was 5 feet tall to 5'2", 90 to 120 pounds. Her NamUs identification number is UP 54572. And then there are 4 cases that we have very little detail about and no sketches. Remember that his dates were sometimes off by 10 years or more, and that he was sometimes off slightly with his age estimates. and that he could be off by as much as 40 to 60 miles when he describes where these women were. He sometimes picked a woman up in one place and left her body in another, and he did target vulnerable women, so they may not have been from the location where he picked them up, and they may have never been reported missing. If you have any information that could help in any way match any of these ladies to a missing person or discovered remains, please reach out to the FBI. The 4 unknowns with little details are unknown San Bernardino, who was a black female aged 18 to 23, killed in 1984, and then 2 unknown Los Angeles, A and B, both black females killed in 1987. And then there is unknown East St. Louis, Illinois, a black female killed between 1976 and 1979, and he met her in St. Louis, Missouri. So if you have any information at all, it doesn't matter how old or small or insignificant you think it might be, if it can help identify any of these women, please come forward. Also, if you have a female family member who went missing at any of the relevant times between about early 1970s to the early 2000s when he was finally captured, please reach out to the Texas Rangers or the FBI. Remember that a person might have gone missing in one place and located in a completely other place. You can provide your DNA to help to determine if there is a match with any of these women and help give them their names, their identities back, and help families find their long lost loved ones. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next Saturday. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.